Okay.
Olá, olá! Olá a todos, todas. Tudo bem?
Olá, tudo bem?
Olá, everyone. Hi, everyone.
Hello.
Be welcome to our webinar today. I'll kindly ask you to mute your microphones for now because we have so many people in the room. So for now, I just want to wish that you're all safe and everybody's safe at home, and be welcome to our webinar, our brain talk. So today, I'm very happy to announce that we have Sophie Cooper from the creative group. So she's going to talk to us about the creative and the marketing industry, also the design industry. So let's start. So for those of you who doesn't know Brains, Brains Networking Group is a group, a non-for-profit group created 3 years ago with the purpose of gathering Brazilian people that are newcomers in Canada to Canada. We are basically students and professionals of marketing, advertising, communications, designs, and analytics industry. So our main goal is to guide and support every newcomer and Brazilian person here to have a smooth transition between Brazil and Canada. So today our community has more than 450 members that are interacting daily in WhatsApp groups, LinkedIn, Facebook, and Instagram. So whoever is not following us now, we have a WhatsApp group that is basically for people that are already living here in Canada, but we also have our LinkedIn page and our LinkedIn group. And we also have our Facebook page and our Instagram account where we share many news about the industry. Sometimes we have industry terms and translations, and we are always sharing the news with you guys. So as I mentioned before, Brains Networking was founded 3 years ago, and my name is Silva, and I'm also one of the co-founders of the group. And here you can see that everybody in the group is working in the marketing and advertising industry. And we also have our volunteers that they are working right now helping this event to happen. So a special kudo for Mariana, Deborah, and Natalia, because if it wasn't for them, we wouldn't be able to have this event happening today. So in the last month, we had happy hours at the time that we were still allowed to have happy hours. And we started to have online talks talking about networking, talking about Google Ads fundamentals, and also talking about strategies to break into our industry in Canada, and even how to optimize our LinkedIn profiles. In May, we had a few events, and today we are having this webinar here with Sophie from the creative group. And we're going to have a networking event for the next week. It's going to be mostly for Brazilian people because we are going to speak in Portuguese, but we're also welcome to have everyone in following our LinkedIn page because we post news and updates daily in English for everybody. And we are going to talk today, as I mentioned before, with Sophie Cooper. She's a recruit manager in the creative group. And she's going to share with us advice and tips of how to get a creative and marketing job in Canada. So, Sophie, are you ready?
I'm ready. Thanks so much for the introduction, Sylvia. I'm just going to share my screen with everyone. There we go. And I mean, first of all, I'd really just like to thank everyone for taking their time out of their evening and joining us for this really exciting opportunity to speak with you. And I really just hope that everyone is keeping safe and well during these very interesting times that we're living in. I know that many of us are being faced with challenges and changes to the lives very unexpectedly, and I just hope that everyone is able to make their way through it, and that you can learn a little bit from what I talk about today in hopes of helping yourself secure a role in Canada in the creative industry. And also, Sylvia, thank you so much for asking me to join. I really do appreciate it. And I can't believe that we've been partnered together for over a year now and have been communicating for that long. And really do hope that we'll stay friends and colleagues for some time. So a number of things that we're going to talk about today, focus on the Canadian creative professionals market, are things like tools that can help you to be successful, talking about how some of your past experience can help you to gain new opportunities in the Canadian market, a little bit about how your portfolio can really help to guide you and make an impression on hiring managers in the Canadian market. Talk about some of the common mistakes or things that you should focus on avoiding when looking for a new role or networking in the industry, as well as talking about some trends that we do have or that we've seen kind of over the next 5 years that are going to be emerging through the creative industry throughout Canada. But just before I go into all of that, I thought it'd be a good idea to give you a little bit of an overview of who the Creative Group is. And many of you have likely heard of Robert Half. It's an international recruiting agency with more than 300 offices around the world. The Creative Group specifically is a division of the group full of highly specialized individuals who are able to help top talented individuals like yourself, as well as clients in the creative industry, and making some great hiring decisions. Some of the roles and things that we do focus on with our clients and candidates encompass advertising, communications and public relations, digital paid and traditional marketing, front-end development, and UX and UI design. The company has been around for more than 70 years, established in 1948, and we're in countries like Australia, New Zealand, Hong Kong, China, the US, Singapore, Chile, and Brazil. So we've got lots of offices everywhere. Now, focusing first on the tools to be successful, there are a number of things to look at and breaking them down into a few different categories. So first of all, looking at designers. So focusing specifically on the types of tools that you can use. Some of the things that we see most frequently looked for on resumes or looked for from hiring managers are things within the Adobe Creative Cloud. So most often it's Photoshop, Illustrator, and InDesign, but there are other tools like Premiere Pro and XD are also more and more important these days. The other element in looking at the Adobe Creative Cloud is the ability to design for both web and print. And for those of you who have been designing for some time, who have done both of those things, for some of us, it can seem a little bit like it crosses over or it's easy on both sides, but really being able to highlight those capabilities from both perspectives is really important. We often hear our hiring managers asking about how an individual can design for both web and print. Another tool that aligns with that would be Canva, which is actually an online free tool that's almost like a PDF editor. And some companies who are smaller might have access to the Adobe Creative Cloud. Look to leverage that as a go-to or an easy one-page PDF developer. So familiarizing yourself or knowing about that tool is always a great kind of add-on. The other thing in looking at more of a UX or UI design focus, some of the tools that we often hear hiring managers looking for or candidates being familiar with are things like UX Pin for wireframing, Sublime Text for HTML and CSS editors, Sketch, Figma, FrameRec, Adobe XD, Exir, and Balsamiq. So being familiar with any of those tools is definitely something that you'd want to highlight either through an interview or on your resume or in your portfolio. Looking right at front-end development, HTML, CSS, JavaScript, and WordPress are definitely things that we're seeing at the forefront, so great skills to have as well. Looking at some of the CAD tools or design tools with SolidWorks, AutoCAD, Fusion 360 are also tools. Even in the last few months, my team and I have focused on some searches with clients looking for those tools. So they're definitely great to have or be able to highlight. And then now with more remote work and a lot of e-learning, especially with the way that the education system has had to switch to online learning, things like Captivate, Camtasia, Articulate 360, Storyline 360, and Blackboard are all really great tools to know as well. Looking at it more from a marketing perspective or marketer's perspective, having insights and experience with, experience with tools such as CRM platforms like MailChimp, Salesforce, HubSpot are all really positive and great tools to know. Looking at marketing automation platforms like Marketo, Constant Contact, ExactTarget, or Pardot are also tools that we frequently hear individuals or hiring managers looking for. On the e-commerce side, Shopify, Squarespace, Magento are very popular e-commerce web platforms that we're hearing people use and hiring managers are looking for. And then more on the digital tool side of things, looking at things like the Google Suite, like the Analytics, Google AdWords, Display, Tag Manager, your SEO, your SEM, PPC tools are all really important tools to know about. And I think to actually note is if you do work with those tools and you are trying to secure or looking for a role with those platforms need to be leveraged, highlighting the exact platforms that you have that knowledge of is super important and really beneficial to help make highlight your profile. Also looking at things on the social side of things or social media platforms, things like Hootsuite, knowing how to use Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn, YouTube, not only from a personal standpoint, but also from a professional standpoint is also something that would be really beneficial to highlight. Other CMS platforms or content management systems like WordPress, Joomla, HubSpot, Sitefinity are all important, or analytics tools like Adobe Analytics. Alteryx is a more recent platform that's come out that's quite popular, Marketo, Moz, those types of things. And then also looking at the research tool side of things are things like Nielsen, Tableau, SurveyMonkey to be able to kind of capture all of that information and be able to make those analyses. But in turn, and in line with both those technical tools are things like soft skills that are really important. And there are a lot of soft skills that hiring managers look for because at the end of the day, if you have kind of an entry level or you're able to learn those tools relatively easily, you can't learn soft skills that same way. So being able to really highlight skills like strategic thinking, leadership, your communication skills, collaboration, ability to work on a team. We know it's so important in the creative industry to be able to collaborate and work effectively with your team and cross-functionally. That's something that you really want to be able to highlight. Intellectual curiosity is another thing. I always find that many people who are creative are also very curious and they want to explore new ways of doing things. Also being comfortable client-facing and communicating with others outside of your organization is important, as well as agency experience. So these are all things to kind of think about and highlight as you have conversations with others. And looking at those tools and what we've learned now, there's also skills that we're seeing over the next year or so that creative professionals are actually focused on learning, and these are kind of skills that are becoming more and more in demand. So that includes web and UX design. And what I actually saw through one of the surveys that Robert Half did is that 24% of respondents topped web and UX design at the top of their list of something they wanted to learn over the next year. Another element of that, excuse me, is content creation and content marketing, as well as data visualization, video production, and user interface design and web development. Through all the respondents in that survey, we actually saw it was about 7 or 8% of individuals wanting to learn more about that over the next year. The other skills that we did see are things that people wanted to improve or augment on was their augmented reality and virtual reality skills, social media marketing or online community management, some coding, as well as responsive design. And then looking at some of the coveted skills and things that we're seeing that are most sought after at this time are things like AI and machine learning, the content creation and content marketing, data science, data analysis and A/B testing, digital strategy, front-end web development, graphic design and motion graphics, SEO, SEM, social media management, UX UI design, video production, and copywriting. We're seeing more that companies need to maintain a pipeline of multi-skilled talents to be adaptive in their industries and within their organizations. And making sure that you have these skills or highlighting these skills allows companies to maximize the benefits of bringing you onto their team to drive innovation in their organization. Moving on from skills and looking at things more from a kind of past experience and future opportunities perspective, really focusing on ways of highlighting your skills falls around things like things that we've seen in our surveys. And most recently, our survey actually highlighted that 47% of the senior managers polled said that providing access to an online portfolio or personal website is the best way for a professional to stand out in the crowd. And why do you ask about this, or why do you think that? It's actually because that online portfolio allows you to extend your reach and extend your capability of highlighting who you are and showcasing that work that you're able to do, that they can then learn and understand and kind of apply those elements to the work that you could be doing for them. Something else to consider as well, though, is that also trying to find employees of firms you're targeting online. Because 49% of our respondents said that those senior managers said that they're impressed when you network with people who are already employed at the organization. This really helps to know that you're invested in the company. It shows that you're looking to kind of create those relationships, understand the business, and really just kind of ties you together to the organization really, really well. So looking at ways of connecting and like through LinkedIn would be a really great opportunity, following the organization on LinkedIn. Something to also note, especially if you're coming from a large multinational organization from Brazil that branches into Canada, looking to connect with colleagues from the organization that you've worked with in the past, or you're looking to move on from to make the move, would also be great to help expand your online professional network. It also could give you a chance to potentially have a conversation with somebody before you're even ever working at the organization or reaching out or applying for a role. So it also helps to give you the opportunity to gain insights and understanding of the company and the culture. Because if you're like me, culture is really, really important to me and being in a role. And if you don't love the team that you're working with, you're not gonna enjoy your job as much. And I'm very fortunate to have a great team. So I highly recommend this as a best practice. And the other thing to think about is really, you are what you put online. And these days, you are what you tweet, you are what you share on Facebook, you are what you put on your website, your Instagram, videos you've posted on YouTube. And I can assure you that hiring managers are not just looking at your LinkedIn profile and your resume. Searches are getting done and people are being looked at. So I've actually heard of situations where candidates have been considered for opportunities, but as a hiring manager has done more research on the individual, they've actually changed their perspective and their tone on the person because they didn't align to what they were posting online. So of course, I truly believe in sharing everything that you want to share, but just always think about it and look at the perspective from someone else looking at the stuff that you put online. And at minimum, always make sure to update your LinkedIn profile, making sure that the information that's on your resume is consistent with what you're saying online. Your job titles are the same, your responsibilities are the same, any accomplishments or photos or videos or things that you want to share, just make sure that all of those things are in line and have a cohesive message. The other thing to look at is networking, and something that we're all doing tonight. Utilizing your online network to help to let people know that you're on the job hunt. Although nobody's really hosting in-person conferences or networking events right now, you can still reach out and network even outside of this group and get the opportunity to try and make the opportunity to have a virtual coffee or join other virtual meetings so that you're able to really kind of expand that network and let people know that you're actively looking for opportunities. Other things that you could do is ask your LinkedIn contacts for endorsements and recommendations, and of course offer to do the same thing for them. Because people that you've worked with can endorse the skills that you're highlighting on your resume. So things like your technical skills, your work ethic, the soft skills that I've mentioned previously, and so forth. These are things that are really important, and having testimonials from someone that you've actually worked with would be a really great way to highlight the things that you're already saying about yourself or that you want people to know about you. It often helps to ask them to do it, but also offer to do a recommendation or referral for them as well, but at the forefront so that it creates an opportunity for both of you. And then the other thing is also just really making it known that you are actively looking for a new opportunity. you know, is people could be aware of it, but companies are always looking for really great talent. And if somebody knows that you're actively looking and they come across your portfolio, your profile, and you've got really great work that they want to see, that could create opportunities for conversations even before there's an official role open and posted on a job board or whatnot. The other thing that you can do is also leverage your other social media tools. So looking at things like your Facebook, your Twitter, your Snapchat, or whatnot, you can definitely look at those other things. But just of course, as mentioned, keep in mind the things that you are saying and putting out in your personal network. The other thing to consider, and what some people overlook, is temporary positions or contract freelance positions. Understanding that most individuals, or some individuals, want to have a full-time opportunity versus a contract role. Or contract roles or temporary roles can actually turn into a full-time opportunity, depending on what the company is looking for or what you're looking for. So there's always an approach to kind of get that experience and get involved with an organization, learn about the team, do some work for them, gain more experience in the Canadian market, and then from there, apply that to either securing that full-time role with the organization or leveraging those connections and that information that you've learned and that's taken from that past role and applying it to that future role. The other thing to note around kind of temporary or freelance roles is kind of the top areas where creative teams are actually turning to freelancers right now. And the top reason that we're actually seeing creative teams rely on freelance talent so much more is to assess skills or access skills, I should say, that don't exist on their internal teams today. So creative professionals have actually cited that the top 5 projects or areas that they most often rely on freelancers include graphic and web design, video production and photography, product production design, interactive and multimedia design, as well as UX research and design. Individuals who have these skill sets are in very high demand in the hiring market. In many cases, employers do struggle to find the right talent to come and join their teams for this. So most of the pros in having these skills are to really highlight them and to be open to those types of roles where you can look to potentially secure that freelance role on a project basis and then explore longer term relationships with that organization. Some of the things we see in kind of a common mistake space, and when I say common mistakes, it's not an actual mistake that you're making necessarily. It's kind of things that maybe you haven't thought about in a way, or you haven't actually gone through and done yourself before. But looking at kind of 3 main areas, the first area I would look at is application mistakes. So this is focused specifically kind of more so on your resume or any kind of job applications you're making. So when you submit a resume that contains poor grammar or typos, that's a red flag immediately. Especially looking at someone, if you're creating content or you're putting together some type of design, the concern there is if this is something that's happening on your resume, is this going to cross over and fall into the work that you're doing? The other thing to look at is not customizing your resume to the job that you're applying for. I mean, knowing that so many people have a generalized set of skills, it's really, really important that you highlight the relevant skills for the specific role that you're applying for. So for example, if you're applying for a graphic design role and focus specifically on graphic design, but you have UX design, you have video production and all of that, you want to hone in on the top skills and be able to highlight those specific elements of the job description through the resume that you're working on. Not saying don't highlight any of the other skills, but you want to have the specific elements that align to that role at the forefront of your resume that stand out the most to that employer. Other things to look at is past position details, focusing on job duties and not accomplishments. And what I mean by this is you don't want your resume to read like a job description. Excuse me. So some of the things that you'd want to focus on, sorry, excuse me, are putting things that I did X, Y, and Z, and the result was this. So for example, you helped develop a rebranding campaign, or you helped develop a holiday campaign, and the return on the investment was 30% year over year, or whatever numbers that you can put in and quantify the value that you brought to the organization that you worked with previously is going to be really beneficial to highlight the capabilities and all the work that you did. So it's something that I really I look at, and I always make those recommendations whenever I see that on a resume. And the other thing is also properly representing your past experience. So looking at things like job titles, or looking at things like your responsibilities. If you, for example, if you were a people leader in a role, then you want to highlight that you were a people leader. But if you mentored someone, but you weren't responsible for their KPIs and their personal development and whatnot, you don't necessarily want to say that you were their manager, because it misrepresents what you were doing to support that individual. You definitely want to talk about or mention that you did some type of mentorship, but you just don't want to misconstrue what you did and how you did it. The other thing is looking more when you're actually interviewing with individuals. And right now, a lot of interviews are happening online, and they're happening over video, which adds another layer of complexity in terms of technologies working and feeling comfortable and background noises. Just as an aside, understanding that your people are doing video interviews right now, and we're all at home, we're all stuck at home. It's okay to have a little bit of background noise, or your dog start barking, or things unexpected. I mean, of course, you want to do everything that you can to avoid that. But if it happens, we're all human, so don't stress too much about that. But kind of the more general mistakes are looking at things like not best preparing or doing your research on a company. And every time my team and I partner with a candidate, we have them prepare for an interview, we recommend a minimum of 2 to 3 hours of research on the organization. So looking at information, not only on their website, understanding their history about the company, looking at people on LinkedIn, understanding kind of the career path. It's also looking at things in the news and kind of understanding kind of what's going on in the company. Has there been any kind of major changes, any acquisitions? If it's an agency, for example, did they get any new major clients? Were there any of those changes? It just allows you to have more tools in your tool belt to have the conversations and feel comfortable when you're sitting down with your interviewer. The other thing is looking at your preparedness to talk about your skills and experience. So whenever I recommend for people to prepare for an interview, is kind of look at the role that you're applying for, look at the role that you're interviewing for, and talk about and focus on how all of the skills that you have align to that position. So take the graphic designer, for example, and looking at the Adobe Creative Suite, Photoshop, Illustrator, InDesign. You really want to have sound examples of how you've used those tools successfully in your past roles to highlight and talk about that. That's not to say you don't want to talk about your motion video or your video production skills and all of that, because those are value adds and add-ons, but you want to make sure that you're very prepared to talk about any of the things that align or represent the role or align with the role very, very clearly. You also want to talk about how you leverage those skills successfully in your past roles. I always say having an example kind of from each of your roles progressively and how you furthered your capabilities or whatnot as you grew in your past positions is really beneficial to showcase how you've been evolving as an individual in past roles. The other thing you're looking at is your level of enthusiasm. And I'm not saying kind of it is like the most excited and just over the top, but you do want to be excited, and you do want to be talking in a way that you're showing your interviewer that you want to be there and that you truly want to work for the company. I always say whenever you're talking, you're interviewing, keeping a smile on your face actually helps you to talk more positively and kind of just helps to share that and showcase that enthusiasm. So always try and have a smile on your face. And the biggest thing, do not arrive late. If you're going to arrive late, I mean, it happens. Whether there's a subway issue or you're stuck in traffic, and we all know Toronto traffic is really bad, and traffic across the GTA is quite terrible sometimes. But if you are going to be late for whatever reason, you want to inform your interviewer, or you want to inform the individual who set up your interview for you as soon as possible, so they're able to mitigate any kind of negative first impressions that might imply or apply to your application. The other thing is during your interviews is actually talking and keeping eye contact with the individual you're speaking to. A lack of eye contact can show a lack of confidence. And you want to go in and feel very confident, keep your head held high, be ready to talk about everything. So, I mean, even if you're really, really prepared, you go in, if you're not keeping that eye contact, then that can actually be a sign that you don't feel comfortable. And you want to make sure that you do feel comfortable while you're in that meeting. The other thing that not everyone always thinks about is being prepared to talk about your career goals. Some companies, or a lot of companies, when an individual is coming into a role, they're talking about other things, but how can this person grow with their company long term? We're going to invest the time to bring someone in, train them, teach them about the organization, and have them want to grow and learn all about the business. It's an investment on your end, but it's also an investment on the company's end. So being able to talk about where you see yourself going, and not to be 10 or 15 years, but kind of how you could see yourself in the company your first 30, 60, 90 days, your first year, the first couple of years, is a really great way of being able to highlight how you also see yourself with the company, and it shows a level of commitment right from the onset in that interview. The other thing is looking at networking mistakes, and oftentimes, I mean, there's no mistake in networking, but in order to maximize the effectiveness of networking, you want to make sure that you're going into it and you're not limiting your exposure. If you're going to a networking event, you want to talk to as many people as possible, but having valuable conversations. You don't want to just say, "Hi, how are you? Nice to meet you. I'm Sophie," and move on. You want to have those conversations and discuss what's going on, learn a little bit about them, share a little bit about you, but don't just stick to one person the whole time. You really want to try and expand that network. The other thing is hiding your agenda. You want to be forward with your intentions or why you're there. If you're at a networking event to learn more about a company, you want to highlight that, or if it's a company that you're really interested in being a part of, share that. It's important to kind of highlight why you're there and what the purpose of your networking is. And the other thing is also kind of keeping a narrow focus. Sometimes we go into certain events or situations with a very sound goal in mind. I'm going here to meet this person or to learn this specific thing. And that's great, because it's always important to going into networking and having that purpose or that goal of what you want to achieve. But don't focus exclusively on achieving that one specific goal, because things can evolve as you're speaking to people, or as the networking event goes on, or whatever the case may be. And so many other great goals can come out of that, and things that you can accomplish and learn from it. So being able to stay a little bit open-minded on that is also a really great tool. The other thing is, I know that we live in a culture where we get a lot of exciting things, results. We look for things to come through very quickly. We've got Amazon Prime that delivers next day. So the immediacy of things and gratification, it has come to be a lot faster. When you're networking with people, you can't expect that this networking event or the conversations that you're having with someone today is going to turn into something tomorrow, because it takes time to build those relationships and to build that rapport with the individuals that you're meeting with. And I mean, you need to, if you can meet with them once, have coffee with them again, or kind of build that relationship, and that constant communication or consistent communication with them is also something that becomes really important. But on the flip side is being too aggressive. You don't want to be overly aggressive when speaking to people. Yes, you want to highlight what you're doing, why you're doing it, the goals that you have, but you don't want to push them to overshoot and try and get too much from them. It's all about building the relationship and growing and climbing the mountain slowly. And on that, it's also giving and taking. So you don't want to go in and take. When I say having conversations and learning about why other people are at the event and what their purpose or what their goals are is equally as important as trying to highlight and share what your goals are. Because you never know, when you're having those conversations with people, more could come out of this by just trying to understand why they're there and what they're trying to accomplish. And that can be a really great benefit on both sides and to everyone. Now, kind of looking at some of the trends that we're seeing in the Canadian industry as a whole. So one of the things that we're seeing and the trends that are shaping the workplace up until 2020 is something called the gig economy and digital transformation. This is looking at a mutually beneficial relationship between both employers and freelancers. So a gig trend, or the gig economy, is based on flexible, temporary, or freelance jobs, often involving connecting with clients or customers through an online platform. The gig economy can benefit workers, businesses, consumers by making work more adaptable to the needs and moments of demand for flexible lifestyles. The first trend is actually a combination of two other trends: the emergence of the gig economy or on-demand economy, which has been underway since the advent of the internet and companies' pursuit of the digital transformation. And those two trends form that actual mutually beneficial relationship. Companies on a digital transformation journey actually seek flexibility in staffing projects. They might need to access specialized skills for a short period of time to achieve certain goals, which is where it becomes really beneficial to have someone who's open to coming in and doing that project-based work. It also, again, gives you the opportunity, or an individual the opportunity, to learn those skills or to gain that experience in the Canadian market and apply that to future opportunities. The other thing to look at, and as the trends evolve, we're actually seeing that by 2025, 7 out of 10 creative teams are going to be understaffed or are understaffed. And 55% of creative professionals expect that their teams will rely more on freelancers even in the next 3 years. So something that's really important is maybe you want to do freelance as well as full-time. Like, there's so many different opportunities. So to keep that in mind is something that's really important. The other thing we see is actually the creative team of the future. And I talk about this in terms of things. You have your core team or your core on-site employees, or that core team, which is going to be maybe smaller. Then you've got your remote employees, which we actually have seen more and more people are looking to be remote. And then we have the teams growing more and more remote. Then we've got those freelancers or gig workers who help on an as-need basis. And then you've got those consultants who come in and actually tell you about how the business should grow. And when you're looking at the creative teams of the future, a lot of what the core teams will be are kind of those more of a high level kind of strategists, and maybe kind of a core designer, a core person with those core skills that can then evaluate, and based on the project or the assignment that you're working on, be able to evaluate the types of skills that you need to look to those freelancers or those good gig workers to come in to maximize the benefit of that project. And then the last thing, sorry, are the external resources. So agencies, vendors, and that kind of thing. So leveraging, if you don't have, say, a consultant in-house and you want to look and have an external resource like an agency come in and put together that strat plan, those are going to be elements of ways to leverage those agencies or those vendors as well. Overall, there are a lot of great resources that are out there. And I mean, I know I've only just touched the surface of a lot of information today. I have put together some of the links of the articles where you can find more information about what I have chatted about today. But if anyone is interested in me sharing a copy, Robert Half and TCG, the creative group, has puts out a salary guide every year. It really highlights the kind of the trends in salary ranges across the different parts of Canada, as well as the US, to give you a sense of based on what your skill set is and your level of tenure should align to and what their type of role is. Also, please feel free, you've got my email, I'd happily answer any of the questions that you have. And then outside of any of the information that I've shared today, Robert Half also has a creative and marketing blog where you can go and learn about all different things going on in the industry. We're putting out articles regularly, so there's a lot of great information that you can learn from there in addition to kind of what we've chatted about today. I really appreciate everyone listening to me and my conversation, and I'll turn to look at Sylvia. We can open it up for any kind of questions that we might have.
Hi, Sophie, that was amazing. Thank you so much for sharing all this knowledge and all this presentation with us. And so just for everybody to know now, like we're going to answer a few questions for the next 20-30 minutes, and we're sorry if we cannot answer everyone's questions, but Sophie is leaving her contact information here in case you have further questions. So just proceeding here with our first question. So we have Vishal, asking I think that is one of the main topics for newcomers here. Is how important it is to have Canadian experience or Canadian education, especially in the creative and marketing industry?
I think it depends on the types of organization or what the organization is looking for. I know from past experience and different clients and companies that we've worked for, or just individuals that I've networked with personally, some companies do feel it's really important to have Canadian-based experience because it allows you to have an understanding of the marketplace. However, other companies, or maybe sometimes multinational companies or not, they are open to having talent that is just well-rounded, good talent. And that's why I think it's so important to be able to highlight your transferable skills as they align to the specific type of role that you're looking at. Because then, even though it might not be Canadian-based experience, it does allow you to show how your skills can transfer. So I'd always say kind of try to network and have conversations to learn about the company and what their preferences are, but to never not apply for something just because you're concerned that they might not consider you because of that.
Okay, that's great. I have another question here because, like, as a lot of people come here to Canada and they decide to start a new life, we have a lot of students, like college students and university students. So I have a question here from Miguel. He says, I'm a student at Centennial College in Interactive Media Management, and a professor of mine said that it is a mistake to present myself as a student in a networking event, especially because most of the students and the members of our group, they already have past experience in their home countries. So we would like to hear more about that. Like, what do you think about a student that already has experience, but is presenting and introducing themselves as a student in a networking event?
I think it's more about the way, you don't want to not present yourself as a student because that would, you want to be forthright in what you're doing and who you are. I think it's about saying, you know what, I'm a student now furthering my education, but I have the experience doing X, Y, and Z. So you're highlighting how you're looking to improve your skills or highlight or kind of progress in your career, both from an educational standpoint, but also leverage that experience. So, I mean, yeah, I would share both. I wouldn't just say I'm a student. You could say, oh, you know what, I'm here to further my education and leverage kind of the past experience that I have.
Hey, we have another question here. It says, I'm looking for an entry-level role in digital marketing, and I have 3 different industries in my work experience. So how to make it relevant when applying for a job? So I think that this is something that can happen like very frequently with marketing people, because if we have experience in different industries or even different markets, it is a little bit more challenging to enhance your skills. So what do you think about that?
Yeah, I mean, diversification in experience is, to me, a benefit. Being able to show how you were capable of working and transferring those skills between industries. A lot of the times you want to focus on the skills that are most transferable. So from a technical skill standpoint, if you're looking at the tools and the softwares and things that you use and that you're comfortable using, highlighting how those transfer across to different organizations and different industries is important, but also looking at how skills are transferable. What you may have been working at an agency and then you want to go client side. I mean, there's a lot of great benefits and information and skills that you would have learned from that industry or from that other organization that you can transfer over. So I don't think that it's a negative at all to have worked in different industries. I think it's important to just really in that case is actually highlight the specific skills that are most transferable. So for example, if one of the responsibilities in the role is to develop a quarterly marketing plan or a quarterly brand marketing plan, and that's something that you've done in your past roles, really highlighting that you've done that and developed that specific kind of overarching plan or that skill in your past roles, and that's why you would be successful in that role. And having done that in multiple industries would actually be a benefit to show how you have different perspectives to be able to apply to what you're doing in the future.
Oh, that's great. And what's your opinion like on having, let's say, survival jobs? Because when you just move to Canada or when you're a student, sometimes like you have to get like roles in different industries other than marketing and creative. So it's not uncommon that you have to work sometimes in warehouses and even like in restaurants. So as you're saying before, like you can like use some of these skills and you can transfer them to marketing. But what do you think, like, how does like recruiters see that?
I mean, I think when you're working with a recruiter or speaking to a recruiter, there's an opportunity to talk about the why. And of course, you never want to just not work because you're trying to find a role in your industry. It's important to have a job and to be able to support yourself. I think in looking at opportunities and going back to that temporary contract or freelance work, if you're finding a role that might be outside of your industry for the time being because it's what you need to do and the decision you need to make, 100% make that decision, but explore those opportunities to do that freelance or that contract work so you are gaining that experience within your industry and that skill set while doing the other thing, if that makes sense.
Okay. And we also have another question from Laura. She's asking how we can address gaps in the resume, like, or sometimes even like spending more than a year outside of the market and other kind of gaps. Sometimes even when you are like doing your transferring from a different like industry or from a different country, you have these gaps. So how do you think that people can address these gaps?
Yeah, I mean, it's depending on what the gap is. I think it's important to explain or to have it listed as, I mean, a hiring manager, recruiter, or individuals are going to look and they're going to ask the question. So kind of at the forefront explaining it. So I mean, I'll use a female example. If you're on mat leave, putting that on that gap, or if you've come to the country and you're trying to secure a new role and you have that gap, you can talk about it. And again, like that's why I always say, like, looking at, or I think, again, I go back to freelancing a lot, but if there's opportunities to work on various projects or secure opportunities or volunteer positions as well to help kind of fill that time is really great. But specifically trying to outline it on your resume, I think if there's a gap for a year or two and then you've got a role, you can add it, kind of a line or an information about it, or I mean, depending on the length. I mean, if there's specific or individual elements, I'd love to kind of take that offline and look at those opportunities or kind of discuss that further with anyone who's interested.
Hey, that's great. I have another question.
Okay.
So when we're talking about marketing, it's easier to measure results. So especially if we're talking about digital marketing, you have impressions, you have views, and you have like so many different metrics that you can use to measure the success of your campaign or of your job. But how you can translate graphic designer activities in accomplishments? This is a question that Fernanda has. She's asking, like, for the resume, what kind of achievements recruiters are looking for in this kind of job position, and how we can translate graphic designer activities in accomplishments?
Yeah. So, I mean, if you're looking at in a year, say you worked on 12 marketing campaigns, or you supported your marketing department with 12 different initiatives. Those are 12 projects, like, or say they're major or small, like, how many projects did you complete in a year? Like, did you do new design every day that you were at work? Or did you do a major redesign program or rebrand that took 3 months and that was your sole focus? It's not necessarily saying I did 2,000 pieces of work. And if that's the number that you want to go for, that's the way that you want to quantify the amount of efforts and the accomplishments that you've done with the company, then that's great. I know that through personal networks and resumes and things that I've seen, talking about the major projects that you've done or telling them the major strategic marketing plans that I've done and your way of contributing to that is a way of kind of highlighting it, if that makes sense.
Yeah, especially because when we're talking about graphic designer, the graphic designer career, you're not talking specifically about numbers, but at the same time is a question that we face quite often when we're talking about results and achievements. So it can be challenging because at the same time you're talking about quality of work and also personal style and technical skills, but it's challenging to face this kind of questions in the interview. So it's very good that we have this kind of inputs from you.
Yeah, and the other thing to think about is if you did all the designs and all of the artwork for a digital campaign for your marketing team that resulted in whatever the ROI was, you can highlight designed all aspects for X campaign, resulting in this number, if you have that information available from that marketing team. Because when you're working on your marketing team or you're working on these campaigns or these initiatives, it's not just one person doing it. It really is a team effort, and everyone is contributing to that. So understanding how and what your contributions were to that project to then benefit the organization is a way of highlighting that information.
Great. And we have another question here from Ricardo. He's talking about advertising agencies. So his question is, Canadian agencies tend to seek for expert professionals? Because in Brazil, some of us become generalists for such a long time. So what's your recommendation of how a candidate can approach in the advertising agencies, or even like recruiting agencies in this case? Like, do you think that we are, the Canadian agencies, they're looking for more generalists or specialists?
I mean, I think it differs based on the agency and kind of what their goals are, the types of clients and the types of projects that they work on. So I wouldn't want to generalize an answer for that. But I think understanding and kind of looking at what an agency does. So if it's an experiential agency, or it's a digital advertising agency exclusively, or whatever the case may be, or whatever their kind of niche is, then likely or potentially they're going to be looking for someone with very specific capabilities and that expert level. But if you're looking at an agency that's a full scope, that does kind of jack of all trades, who kind of does everything, then they could be looking for someone who is more of a generalist, who can do all of those things. I think that what would be beneficial in something like that is that networking piece, and really trying to connect with individuals at the agencies that you're interested in to try and create that relationship and understand the types of individuals that they're looking for, or even looking at the types of the portfolios of other designers that are working at those agencies can also give you a sense of the type of style that they're looking for. And if there's opportunities for you to showcase things that maybe you don't have in your portfolio or you're not sharing, that are more in line with the stylistic designs of others that work there already, that could help to kind of highlight your profile as well.
Okay, that's great. So I have another question here from Victor. He's asking you what is, he would actually like to hear about the marketing in the CPG industry. CPG stands for consumer packaged goods. So to be more specific, I'd like to understand how she sees those roles in Canada. Is more strategic and related to product development, or more related to brand communications, digital marketing?
I mean, I think CPG companies and the larger they are, the more variation that they have in the organization. I think companies, CPG or other, aren't trying to focus on one thing specifically from a marketing perspective. I think it's important to have, or they think it's important to have different kind of elements. And I wouldn't want to generalize for all organizations, just from my personal experience of friends and other individuals that I network with who work in those organizations. You do see a diversification of skills within the marketing team, especially as we become a more digital age and more focused on how we grow with technology and situations like we're in now. Even if a company is focused on one thing or the other, I would guess that coming out of this, if someone is focused on one thing, there's going to be a lot of changes on that diversification piece.
Okay, and I have a question here from Lillian. She's asking how to convince a recruiter that despite of years of work experience acquired in Brazil or whatever home country it is, we are interested in an entry-level position to start a career in Canada. Because this is something that newcomers usually have to deal with. Like, we have a lot of experience, but we're almost like starting from zero in Canada. So sometimes like you have that marketing management position, and then you need to come here and then you need to start all over again. And sometimes you need to start like from a more entry level or more junior position. So how do you see that? Like, how we can talk to recruiters to actually show that we're really interested in an entry-level position, even though we have past experience?
Yeah. And I don't think it's about convincing recruiters or convincing us that you're interested or you're open to it. I think there's an understanding and a respect for someone who's willing to do that, especially if you're in a managerial or a senior manager role and you make the transition and you are open and willing to take on that coordinator or that more junior level role to develop your career in Canada. I think more times than not, the conversations that we have or the things that we hear from the client side on that is, yes, okay, we recognize that these people are overqualified, they're great. The concern comes from how long someone's going to be willing to stay in a role or how quickly they'll become complacent in what they're doing before they want to move on. And so oftentimes I'd say or a lot of the times it's not myself or recruiters who are saying, oh, we don't want to consider you for this role. It's understanding the concerns or the questions that come from a client and wanting to be able to, at the end of the day, someone wants to make an investment in you and have you grow with their company, and they don't want you to be bored at the same time in your role. They want you to feel challenged, because part of the excitement of going to work every day is facing new challenges and be able to learn and grow. And if you go into something too junior or you focus on securing a role that's much more junior than what you've done in the past, you could become very unhappy or very complacent in your role very quickly. And I think that wouldn't be beneficial for anybody in the situation.
Okay, so we have a question from Natalia, and she says, hi, Sophie, thinking back to people you've seen working in the digital marketing, digital media area, what differentiated the ones who are good from the ones who are really great at it?
I think trying to think of everyone that I've partnered with. I think it's not just the skills, like the technical skills that you have. I think it's also the passion. And I know passion isn't something that you can learn in school or whatnot, but really having that true love for what you're doing or the brand that you're working on and the organization that you're working on. I would say that I see people who have equal skills and equal tenure and are both very good at their jobs. The person who's more passionate and excited about what they're doing and values align to the brand they're working on are the ones who truly become the most successful and who are able to kind of soar into that next level.
Hey, that's great. So we have another question here from Faizan. We are seeing a lot of job posting these days. Is there hiring at the same rate at which the jobs are being posted, or is just shortlisting until the businesses are back to usual?
Yeah, so definitely have seen a slowdown in companies making the decision to make a hire right away. A lot of companies, especially because we're in week 9 for many organizations, and right now, a lot of companies, they have plans. You start 2020 off, you have your strategic plan, you have the goals you want to achieve as an organization, whatever the numbers are that you set out for your executive team or your senior leadership team. And these are things that you want to hit. And then all of a sudden, near the end of Q1, everything kind of falls apart. Well, you still have these plans and these goals that you want to achieve. So yes, there are lots of roles being posted and things, and companies are focused on how do we get as close to what we wanted to achieve by the end of 2020. Not necessarily make a hire right now because there is an element of cost consciousness, and not bringing someone on that they couldn't necessarily maybe keep on because of all the changes and the impacts from COVID-19. But definitely kind of looking for talent and having conversations to then make those hires as soon as possible or as soon as they can. That being said, that's not all industries. There are some industries who have been much less affected from COVID-19, things like our healthcare, pharmaceuticals, certain communications roles and that kind of thing. Companies are needing this talent and needing people right away. So it's a matter of kind of just looking at what's growing right now. CPG actually hasn't been as impacted as some would have expected either. So there are industries that are making their posts and making their hires and doing it right away, but there are other companies who aren't. And you even see some organizations will have roles posted and they'll actually state future opportunity or future hires, or you go to their career pages and it'll say not actively hiring right now, but then they'll have roles posted. So it's what they want to do or what they want to achieve, or the people that they want to bring on, but not necessarily making the hire immediately. Companies are still hiring though. I don't want to say that they're not.
Yes, and especially right now during this crisis, it's like everybody has a lot of questions, but nobody actually has answers. So we are like living in very like uncertain times, but I think that I personally believe that advertising and marketing industry is never actually going to die. So we are always going to have the chance and opportunity to grow, especially for the ones who are getting more involved in digital roles. So like we can see like a big movement in the industry with companies hiring for e-commerce and even like increasing their social media investments. And I think that overall, whoever is going to digital is going to have bigger chances to thrive after this crisis.
For sure, digital is definitely a focus, and the thing, I mean, in this time, knowing that the hiring trends are a little bit slower, it's a great time if there's a skill that you want to brush up on or you want to learn. A lot of people I've spoken to are focused on actually taking this time and maximizing that. A lot of different organizations and things, you're seeing kind of like skills courses and things at discounted rates, or some of them being offered for free and that kind of thing. So it's a really great time to leverage on that. As I said, over the next year or so, there are a number of skills that organizations are going to be looking for, are going to be kind of those coveted skills. So it's a great time if it's something that you've been wanting to learn or explore and practice. It's a great time to be doing that.
Okay, so I'm going to tell everybody now that it's already 7:30, so we still have time to answer a few questions, but like we are officially finishing the event here, but we are still going to be here for maybe 5 or 10 more minutes. So whoever wants to leave now, we're not going to be offended by that. And also, like, we wanted to say that we're going to send a PDF presentation, and we'll be very thankful if you could answer our survey about this webinar, okay? And we know that Sophie is leaving her contact information in case you have any further questions, but we're going to stay here for a few more minutes so we can answer a few more questions. Is that okay for everyone? Okay, so 1 second here. I have another question here. Oh, sorry, I'm just having a small technical problem.
All good.
Okay. Oh, I'm sorry. My screen having a problem now. Well, I'm just like figuring this problem here with the chat. Sophie, do you wanna add something about COVID or about the situation now? What do you feel about the market?
Yeah, I mean, as I was saying, I mean, the market is definitely slowed down, but I have seen, and what we've seen and discussed nationally with our organization across the board, we do calls every couple of weeks and touch bases and regularly talk to our counterparts in different areas. There's almost like a shift in mindset. I feel over this past week, and I anticipate going into next week as we see more businesses opening up and that kind of thing. It's almost like it's a bit of a weight lifted off of everyone's shoulders. Of course, we need to be really careful and cognizant of everything that's going on, but I think companies are becoming a lot more comfortable. And something that in one of the surveys that Robert Half has actually just done, we've actually seen a transition and a shift to working remotely. 60% of people actually said that they'd love to kind of continue doing that when we come out of this, because of the work-life balance that they're seeing. And then companies are going to be evaluating kind of the importance of who's in the office when and what the structures and setups are like, to be able to be very cognizant and careful and keep their employees as safe as possible going back into work. So I think that there's going to be a lot of really kind of interesting things that come out of this time that we'll all get a lot of new learnings from.
Okay, so I have another question here from Christy. She says, I'm interested in a junior or director position, but since there are no such positions on the market right now, do you think it's more relevant to switch to graphic design instead? And we also have another question from Ricardo. He's asking, do you think that art direction is still like a good, like it's a role that we're still going to see more often, or people are switching to graphic design?
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to say that it's going to be something important all the time, because I don't have a crystal ball, but I mean, art direction is important. We need individuals who are skilled and capable of kind of doing that. I don't think putting graphic design is off the table. I mean, I think being able to have a multi-purpose skills is definitely important. In that case, I mean, I would look at more of a senior designer type of role, and kind of senior designer, art direction, kind of tie it all in. So it's kind of also going back to saying, you know, I want a role, I want to stay in my industry, I want to focus on this, but how can I kind of leverage all of my skills? And also looking at even like smaller organizations too, in that case where maybe the team isn't able to have a graphic designer and an art director, being able to kind of repurpose or re-highlight your skills in a different way would also be beneficial to both yourself and an organization.
I have also another question related to art direction and graphic design, because we can see like a lot of art directors or graphic designers that they have portfolios with work from their home countries. And when we are talking about graphic design and art direction, especially graphic designer, we are talking about the visuals, but sometimes we have a portfolio with pieces that they have information, or they have like, it's like a whole campaign that was made in a different language. So how do you see that? Like, how do you see a portfolio that has a second language, or it has a language that is different from English, even though you're talking about the visuals or photography or the graphics, instead of talking about the copy by itself?
Yeah, I mean, I think when you're looking at someone in the creative space, or someone's portfolio, I should say, in the creative space, it's not, the words aren't the only thing that someone is going to look at, right? Like at the end of the day, you're looking at a piece as a whole, or a portfolio as a whole. And I think, yes, someone can get, I mean, I'm finding the best way to say, I don't think it's a bad thing to have it in. I think it's important to kind of highlight those capabilities. I think if it's something that you're concerned about, or you feel you want to have more work to showcase, if there's even some personal examples of work, or you're able to have a sample of the work that you've done for that client and transition it to change the words into English, or do an example of what that looks like, that can be relevant to the market, as a way of also highlighting elements. Or I've even seen, if there's an organization or a team that you're really interested in being a part of, when applying for that role, not putting it on your portfolio or publicly sharing it, but doing a design that you think would really capture the attention of the hiring manager, that aligns to that work, that's focused specifically on the Canadian industry or that organization, could also be beneficial to kind of say, you know what, here's all the work I've done in the past that has gone live, gone public, has gone to clients, but here's something that I just did as an example for you.
Okay. I think that everybody that has worked in the advertising and marketing industry, especially advertising, I already had a chance to notice that it's a very like small industry. So what are your thoughts about that? Because we know that once you break into the industry, it's easy to shift to another job, because you're always like moving around between the industry. But what do you think like about the creative and especially advertising industry in Canada? Do you think that this industry is like very limited, or do you think there is also like always opportunity for everyone else? And if yes, what would be like the best way to break into the advertising industry?
I think that there's always opportunities in every industry. I think it's about showcasing your talent, having the will and the determination to make the connections that are going to, be beneficial to connect with that individual, and taking the time to do that networking. If you haven't broken into the industry yet, but you're networking with these individuals, you're getting your name out there, people know about you and they know about it. There might not be that opportunity right now, but you can share, but think about the fact that once you've kind of created those opportunities or created that, or when those opportunities come and you've been networking with that person and you've built a relationship that's not just about one specific job or one specific opportunity at that company, there's a better likelihood or more likelihood of you kind of connecting with them and exploring that opportunity and securing that role. That's why I think networking and creating connections and communication is just it's such an important aspect to this industry, and making sure you put yourself out there and you don't be afraid to have conversations and to introduce yourself to people and showcase your work on in your different avenues. And I think it's sort of the best way of really getting your name out there and getting to know people and joining freelance groups through different social medias and seeing things that way. I think it just really helps everyone to kind of get to know each other that way.
Yes, perfect. And especially because we are communication professionals after all.
Exactly.
So we need to be able to communicate and to connect with people. Not that we need to be like a salesperson, but we always need to be able to communicate and to show ourselves in the same way that we show our products and companies and services that well, you know?
Exactly. And it's always about being proud of what you've done and being proud of the work that you're sharing. I think having that confidence and saying, look at what I have done and look what I have accomplished. It's about putting that best foot forward and being really positive in that manner. I think that helps you a lot.
Yeah, that's the key for sure. So we are going to finish our event now because we already have so many questions answered by Sophie, and it was an amazing content, like all the whole presentation, all the questions and all the answers. And we appreciate so much that you took this time to talk to us.
Well, thank you so much
we
for
also
inviting me.
are going to send.
Sorry.
Yeah, no, thank you. And just another quick reminder, we are going to send this PDF presentation, but we also will be like super thankful if you could answer the survey about this webinar. And whenever you can, like, just reach out to us. We have like our pages on LinkedIn, on Facebook, on Instagram. And even if you are not a Brazilian, but you are also like in the marketing and advertising creative industry, we'll be more than happy to connect with you. And thank you so much, everyone. And we hope that everybody stays safe. And we are very thankful for having this chance to talk to everybody. And thank you, Sophie.
Thank you so much, everyone. Nice to meet you all. Have a great night.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.